guys, it's Izzy here, and today we are going to be doing my November reading wrap-up, looking at all the books that I have finished so far in the month of November. The month is still young. There are still plenty of days in the month for me to read. The books that aren't going to be featured in this video, you can see on my Goodreads, which is the links linked down below, or in one of my vlogs. I talk about all the books I read in depth over there on the vlogs. Let's get into it. We're going to be starting with my most recent read, going all the way back to the first book I finished in the month. The most recent is Cocaine Blues, a Fern Fisher mystery by Carrie Greenwood. This is a short little mystery, cozy mystery novel. The characters were really unique, but as they felt modern but fit perfectly in this historical setting that took place over 100 years ago. And as I said, they were all unique. It was such like a good cast of characters to have. Everybody was just set, like you knew who was who, even if this book is less than 200 pages. It didn't lack development on the character part. The atmosphere was my favorite part. This is taking place in Melbourne in the 1920s, which I don't know what was happening in Australia in the 1920s. So this was all new territory for me, but I've had problems in the past where I will read a historical mystery and the author doesn't really use the history that much. They just want to set a scene. When this really builds into the history, communism is obviously on the rise at this part. We had just gone through the First World War and women's rights were becoming a thing. Women were gaining the rights to vote in certain countries. The author really did use a lot of that historical info in the setting, and I loved that because that's the reason I picked up this book, was for the setting. Now, this was a book where I hate to call it lazy, but there'll just be dialogue and it will go on for a little while and will not have anything else except the dialogue. And after a while of that, I do get kind of confused. So that might just be me. I have a hard time trying to tell the difference in who's talking. It is kind of a letdown for me. And with the plot, I felt like it was trying to do too much at once. If this book had been longer, that could have been improved, because we have Fern going on this one mission. She's sent to Australia for this one reason, but so many other things are just getting thrown at her, and it just got too much. I think the book was just trying, or the author was trying to do too much in this one book, and this is a series, but I think that too much was happening in too short of a time span. But I did enjoy this book. I gave it a 3 stars. If anything I said intrigues you, give it a go. If I'm in a slightly different position, the camera died and I had to go charge it, so that's why. But the next book I have to talk about is my buddy read of the month, and that is Magic Hour by Kristen Hanna. These characters, I loved how we got their professional and personal viewpoints, because our point of views are from a child psychiatrist or psychologist, I always get those confused, a doctor, a police officer, and then the girl at the center of this case herself. And I just think that's so smart to get these people who you're getting their professional and their personal viewpoints on this situation. And I think that's so important, because think if we just got the personal, then we would have to bring in, okay, this is the girl's doctor, this is the police officer who's on the case. You would have to add so many more characters, and would they lack depth? That's going to be something we get to in a minute. But Dr. Julia Cates, she was my favorite character because she's the one that's a psychiatrist, and usually those are people you're seeing get into other people's heads. But when you are reading a book, you are analyzing a character, you are inside of their head. I think that's so intriguing, to be inside the head of a psychiatrist and seeing if she's going to walk that walk, or if she's just going to talk the talk and not follow the own advice that she gives her patients. And just the battle that is. It's so, because you know what you should be doing, but then there's emotions and everything that become involved. I think that's really intriguing to read about. But I did lack an emotional connection to these characters. I don't know what it was. Like, I liked them, I enjoyed reading from them, but I didn't feel connected to them. I felt like I was just reading their story and not being a part of it, I guess. The atmosphere was good in this. I think it's so important for Alice's backstory and everything that she's been through. You're going to need that atmosphere to live up to the expectation. The writing, I'm usually not a descriptive writing person. I wanted it to be straight to the point, but I can get on with Kristen Hanna's descriptive writing because she makes these scenes so cinematic, and I could just see a movie playing inside of my head. And her dialogue, the dialogue was so good, and one of my favorite parts. As I said, I lacked the emotional connection to the characters, but the dialogue had me feeling so many emotions. I would be like, ooh, burn, or oh my gosh, jaw dropping, and all of these different emotions are like, oh, the heartstrings. I would feel all of that, and you can definitely see the intelligence levels of the characters by how they speak. I think that's something that comes out in the real world as well, but she did a great job at getting that on page. Now, something odd here. I'm usually a character-driven girly, but the plot was my favorite part of this book. It seems so out there, so unbelievable. We had this young, like 6-year-old girl holding a wolf pup and jumps 30 feet into a tree. I mean, that's just outlandish. But Kristen Hanna makes this story so believable. I don't know how she does it, but she can do it. With the magic hour, the themes were amazing as well. There is a theme of family, the bond of a family, found family, how your family isn't always who you are blood related to. And then there's the bond between sisters, the bond between mother and daughter. All those themes are present throughout this book, and I loved that. Another theme is coming home, and now home doesn't necessarily have to be a location, but it can be the people involved. And I loved this book and highly recommend it. It is November, and in November we read nonfiction. So this one is Manhunters, How We Took Down Pablo Escobar by Steve Murphy and Javier F. Pena. So this is the story that inspired the TV show that is Narcos on Netflix. This really felt like these two guys sitting down and telling you their story. That gets you so connected to the book that you can honestly understand what they were like in these situations. And I just think that's such a unique reading experience, reading a memoir, reading a nonfiction, when you get to connect with that person. Because obviously I'm never going to go on a journey of taking down a drug lord. That's never going to happen. But I really got to understand it in this book. Also, if you have seen the show, this just adds so many more layers to our heroes in the show. We are seeing how they got involved in law enforcement and what their early days in the DEA were like, all the way from that to taking down one of the biggest drug lords, if not the largest drug lord of all time. And then what life was like for them after that. How do you come down from that high? This one, I really enjoyed it. I loved it and recommend it. I did read a poetry collection this month, and that is Sometimes I Never Suffered by Shane McCrae. We have two stories in here. The first being about an angel who has fallen from heaven. The second being about Jim Limber, who was the adopted mixed-race son of Jefferson Davis. I don't understand the connection between these stories, except they both revolve around heaven. With Jim Limber, he has died and is experiencing freedom for the first time, sadly, in heaven rather than here on earth. There are an angel, heaven. I don't know what the other connections are. I don't really get the point of going from one story to the next and back and forth. I didn't get that. And I really struggled with reading it. Poetry, I always read it out loud. That's my preference for poetry and what I've been told how to understand it best. But I had a hard time understanding this. It was lacking clarity. I was having to reread things several times just because of how sentences were worded. It was a little wordy in that sense, but I did really like the themes and like these stories, and I do think they are very powerful stories, but overall it was lacking some clarity. Now we have a graphic memoir, and that is Ducks, 2 Years in the Oil Sands by Kate Beaton. Kate Beaton was a student. She graduated and had to pay off her student loans, couldn't get a job in her degree field because she's in a rural area. So she goes to work in the oil sands to get money to pay off the student loans so then she can go to graduate school and so on. This book really shows a sticky situation that student loans are. Now this is in Canada. I don't know how different it is in the United States from the United States, but it was really just shows that struggle, because I think a lot of people are really judgmental to people in that situation, and they only think it's important to educate yourself. And something so important about reading is putting yourself in somebody else's shoes that, like I said with the DEA agents, I'm never going to take down a drug lord, so I learned what it was like. I don't have student loans to pay off, but I can learn what other people who are in that situation, how difficult it can be for them without judging them, because that's not my place to do as a human. It also shows being one of the few women in a male-dominated field and being objectified by men, and oh my gosh, that is extremely relatable. So if you're a young woman, a woman in general, because yeah, it happens to all ages, you can definitely relate to our girl Kate here. But my issue with this, especially towards the middle of the book, it got really sporadic where I would flip the page and I'd be like, did I miss a page? Because how did we get to this scene? Scenes would just end really abruptly and I would be like, that's all. I do think that needed a little improving, so hopefully with our other future works that's solved. Now we have my 5-star prediction of the month, and that is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I did not connect with the character in this one because I just had such a hard time deciding what was real, what was fake. This book felt like a fever dream. So the books that, if you liked these books, then I think you should pick up this book. Bunny by Mona Awad and My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otesha Moshfegh. Those, so similar to this. One of those I didn't like, one of those I loved. So it's the mental health books are always hit or miss for me. But I couldn't tell what was real. I couldn't tell what was fake. Didn't know how to connect with the character. But the atmosphere of this was like time traveling back to the mid-century New York City. And also, if you like dark academia, I think you would like this book because our character is a student, scholarships, and she has won this prize to go work at a fashion magazine in New York City for a little bit. She really cares about her studies, and you're going to be hearing about her studies and hearing just about college life. So if you like dark academia, then you might want to give this a go. The writing, there were some really great passages where it's like, oh, that's so true, or that's so relatable, but everything else took away from that for me because the plot, it was just a snap. And I get some people snap, that happens, but I don't understand how we got from point A to point B of this mental breakdown. I do not understand how we got there, and I had a hard time, as I said, trying to find out what was real and what was fake. And I had a hard time with the flashbacks. It was just, this book was edited really weird, and again, I struggled with this book. It was very confusing. Maybe it'll be better on reread. Maybe it would have been better if I did the audiobook. Let me know your suggestions for reading The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, because I did annotate it, so I will reread this one day. It could be 10 years from now, but I hope that I have a better understanding then, and I do personally think this is a book that I could understand better on reread. Lastly, we have the first book that I finished in October, or in November. It was a carryover from October, and that is They Drown Our Daughters by Katrina Monroe. This is a horror novel. Our main character, Meredith, though, in our main timeline, because we're going through 100 years or so in this book, Meredith, something didn't feel right for me about her. Something just felt off the whole time, and I don't really know what it was, but I didn't really like her, and not in an Evelyn Hugo way, because Evelyn Hugo, I may not like her as a person, but I love following her story. 5-star book there, but this one was a 4-star. I did love it and definitely recommend it. The atmosphere, we are at Cape Disappointment in the Pacific Northwest. There's just such eerie vibes, and that's perfect for, you know, a ghost story, for a paranormal story. You need those vibes for October. The writing, I don't really have any complaints about the writing. It was good. It got me through the story. That's what I come here for, right? And then the plot, this is one of my favorite tropes, is a cursed family going through generations. Y'all know I love multi-generational family stories. That's my favorite. That is my favorite trope. And then in here we throw in some paranormal elements. We love that. I love to get in to see this family all through time as they all were trying to find the root cause of all of this. And also, this is such a story of motherhood, and I think that's really what this book is about, but she had some fun with her writing. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you made it all the way through, leave a Thanksgiving emoji in the comments below. And as always, comment, rate, and subscribe. And don't forget to ring that notification bell to be notified when all my videos go live. I'll see you in my next one. Bye! If you are familiar with my videos, you're used to seeing Sherman at the end of them. Sadly, Sherman has since passed away, but I would still like to encourage you guys to help your local shelters. Sherman was at the Darlington County Humane Society in rural South Carolina. I always have their link down below in the description if you guys would like to help them, but also help your local shelters as well. You can do that by donating, sharing posts like this one, volunteering, fostering, and adopting, which it's great to do all of those things. Great to help your community, great to help the animals in your community, and I cannot recommend it enough. All of my pets were rescues, they were strays or from animal shelters, and I love them so much, and I know how much love they can give, so knowing these pets at the shelter can equally give that much love, it's amazing. And y'all should totally take part and help out those local animal shelter pets, and please help them.